Hello and welcome back. This is the third video in a playlist series of decoding or attempting to decoding the Anapanasati Sutta, mindfulness of breathing. I'm sure some of you have been itching to hear the gong. I thought it would be a nice way to initiate this video. I might make a habit of that, except it's a little slow for the racy YouTube energy. You know, if it takes more than 15 minutes, I don't want to watch it kind of thing that is here, which I'm not really trying to appeal to or apply to. These teachings are dense. Meditation is not simple. Finding the absolute liberation of your soul and heart's desires is not actually sold on every street corner, as major corporations would have us believe. They take time. They take patience and investigation and a settling, as we've been talking about quite deeply, if you've seen this far, so you already know on some level, right? So I might just ring this lovely instrument at the beginning of these. Might be a nice ritual to begin. Okay, so we've come to the end of the Buddha's instructions, really, of Anapanasati, where we ended with relinquishment. This whole system of, and I really love the analogy of building I still haven't quite determined the correct language to speak about this chemical environment. It's like it's so very much like a very delicate chemical process, um, with a whole chemistry set. You know, it's very much inner alchemy, of your mind, of your heart, and it's not, it's not even so much a simile, because we're finding, in modern sciences, that there's neurochemicals going on that are affecting so much in our bodies. This is literally what's happening on the physical level, on the cellular level in our bodies. This is what is taking place when we practice these things. Um, when we're not, and we're in our mundane beta brainwave state, we're going about our life. There's constant thought processes arising that reach into what in the Pali Canon in Buddhist tradition are just labeled unwholesome states, negative mind states, we'll say, of irritation or desire. Desire, this sense of lack, this sense of reaching out, which is sort of the opposite of being calm, collected, which the Buddha says, it is this samadhi, this state is the entire focus of his teachings. He says so much in the Anguttara Nikaya, in many places in the suttas. It can kind of be hard to find, the exact answers we're looking for as we sort through this huge body of knowledge. It's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. Because, there's so much as we investigate these teachings that come to light later on. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. But he does indicate, at the end of the Noble Eightfold Path, coming to this right concentration, we are trying to build this perfect environment inside of our minds, inside the limbic system, inside of our nervous system, to settle the mind, where we have this experience that we cannot have without this whole system being in place. I want to come back to in the Satipatthana Sutta. That's the four foundations of mindfulness, not mindfulness of breathing. They're very interlinked, though. They're very similar suttas. And I'm going to go back and forth to them a little bit in this one, because we're coming to the place where the Buddha describes how mindfulness of breathing fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. So this is kind of the focus of this video. He says in that video, in describing the breath, because he describes his mindfulness of breathing even in Satipatthana, and in his description of it, he says this. He says, monks, It's just like a lathe turner, which I'm a carpenter by trade. It's what I've done much of my life. Furniture, cabinetry installations, anything with wood. I have $10,000 worth of tools for doing this kind of thing. So I know what a lathe is. If you haven't, you're on YouTube, pause this video, type in lathe woodworking, and you will see a great video. It's important for you to have this image in your head to understand the full brunt of this analogy. So go ahead and take the time to do that and come back to me if you don't know what a lathe is. Welcome back if you're coming back. If not, lathe, you have it in your mind. So he says, just like a skilled lathe worker knows exactly, they're in tune as this lathe is spinning and they've got a very sharp chisel on your arm to tilt it in right for safety's sake. If that thing catches, it will flip that thing back into your face, crack your skull. You have to really pay very careful attention to what you're doing and to cut your shape, your profile into a vase or a bowl, whatever it is that you're crafting, in the round is what they say, because you're making something round, which is why you're spinning on a lathe to get those perfect proportions. It's how you have to do it. It's how we do it with everything we do: nuts, bolts, bowls, everything circular we make on a lathe. They have steel lathes, metal lathes, lathes for all kinds of stuff. It's the same thing as a potter. And the Buddha uses the same analogy of a potter's wheel too sometimes, for different purposes. With mindfulness of breathing, he uses the analogy of a lathe. He says, monks, just as a skilled lathe worker or a wood turner knows, I'm making a long turn, I'm making a deep cut right now, I'm making a short little notch in so that I have like a little band in my woodworking project. Just as he knows, okay, I'm doing this, that's the kind of focus and attention that we're directing to the breath. So it's this intimate that we want to be with our experience. It takes this level of calming and determination to hold our mental structure, because like we've said, our sympathetic nervous system, autonomic nervous system, it is so ramped up, especially in our modern culture. But it's just by its own nature, just by human nature, much less with what we've got going on out in the world. It takes a lot to really get our hands on this wild thing inside of us. You can sort of equate it to a different being. It's like dealing with a child, calming a child, helping a wild animal relax, or a stray dog, or building a relationship with a cat. However you want to frame that, it takes a lot to it's one way of looking at it. I want to kind of back away from that now, actually. um, to build this container, it takes a lot of devoted energy to initiate, but also, this is key, is sustain these states. Without these little, I'm going to just say, chemical imbalances in our inner physiology blipping up, we don't want that to happen. Deep, true samadhi, if you're looking for enlightenment, I'm not here to help you feel better. I'm not that kind of mindfulness teacher. I'm talking about the core of these teachings, the deep liberation of what we're aiming for. And that's nothing short of enlightenment. Enlightenment can seem like um, an unattainable goal. It's certainly a difficult goal. And this is the how and the why. We need that complete samadhi, that complete, concentrated, deep, trance like state, to have the really deep breakthroughs, to have really, these tectonic shifts in our heart, in our mind, in our psyche, in our perceptions, because perception affects feeling, suffering is a feeling, it's all sort of connected. So, building this deep well of balance as the focus of this is like the attention we give to turning wood on a lathe. This is how we connect with the breath. So we're building this environment so that we can see the nature of impermanence in our lives, in our reality, the way everything is transient. we're very time bound, and we are really addicted to our perception of time. To really transcend our reality, transcend our hearts, transcend our perceptions, our suffering, takes that we have the power to influence our relationship, how we are relating to our lives. A big part of this is how we perceive of time. We are being conditioned by our daily lives to perceive of time in the way that it applies to our daily work, answering phone calls, going to the grocery store, picking up the kids, doing whatever we're doing. And these are really sort of mundane, this isn't what time is. This isn't the deep mystery of the universe. You do have the ability to not just contemplate it, but really contact it, to really deeply inside of yourself know and understand the inner workings of these things. And it starts with this, excuse me, deconditioning um, of our misperception of the solidity of everything. Everything. A big part of the Buddha's teaching you may or may not be familiar with is the five aggregates of self clinging. These five aspects of ourself, our personality, that we take to be very solid. And the Buddha is pointing us to, you do this where you can see clearly, and then direct your attention to impermanence there, which is a whole nother thing that I will be getting into very deeply. Another group of, I don't know, 100 videos just to look at one tiny chip off of the gem that is the Buddhist teaching. But it is the impermanence of our own self, our own personality. Now it keeps reoccurring, right? We wake up with the same personality every day. It is in essence a hologram of memory, of remembered things, of belief structures, of habit patterns, millions of things. It's not just a one thing. It kind of looks like it, where like, a fly's eye, it looks like one thing because he's tiny, but when you look really close, it's millions of these little facets, right? And that is what builds the holographic hologram, the illusion of our personality. We can augment, we can change these things, we can destabilize it. And this is another thing, is that when you feel the destabilization of who you are, it gets very frightening. It gets very ungrounded. It gets to a point where you don't have ground beneath your feet. And that is the importance of developing this deep samadhi, this place in you where you can, take the weight of Atlas and breathe it. It's like having a baby. You got to be able to face this and do it. Um, may very well be the purpose and reason for the image of Atlas holding up the world, is how could you possibly do that? Samadhi. These teachings, as I said in one of the last videos, they're not at all uncommon. They're just forgotten in a society that's killing itself. Let's not get into that. Let's be happy, and we're doing what we can, right? So, impermanence in who we are, our personality, our mental structures, our habit patterns, the entire internal world, but also our lives, our situations. When you develop a practice, you really start to see things that really just get in you and stir you all up, bring up all these negative things. They're gone by tomorrow, because you get distracted by something else, or it just naturally transforms on its own, even if it doesn't completely, turn from, depression to absolute radiant joy. You kind of go from depression to like, okay, I'm not so bothered by it now. I mean, I'm not still like stoked about my situation in work or relationship or whatever, but it just kind of flitters off. And that's what we don't notice because we don't have a mindfulness practice, or because we're not paying attention to it. um Excuse me, sorry. um all I can hear is the children downstairs. My mind just went blank. um Wow, I'm so sorry. My mind just completely went blank on me. Um, Wish I could pause and check where I was. I don't have any stuff right now. Shoot. I'm going to stay with you, and I'm just going to try and continue off from where I was. Kind of start again. I'm so sorry that I just lost my thread and I cannot get it back. Uh, um, so the impermanence in our world, just kind of start there. Um, the impermanence of our minds, which I just advertised in a beautiful way. How we hold on to things ourselves, the world around us. Coming back to this deeper place where we can get perspective on these things. And when we get really, really deep, we get a very poignant pow, and that's enlightenment. And it is hard fought, hard won. Um, and as I find in my practice, you reach levels that you didn't know were there, and you think, I can't believe this was in me to be this still, to be this quiet, to be this in tune with every little, flitter of my emotional system. That is so possible. And it just goes so much deeper beyond that, too. So please be inspired, be inspired. The Buddha said, I have his last words, which was something he taught every day, um, was Vayadama Sankara Apamadena Sampadetati, um, which means basically, amongst all things are impermanent. Everything's moving. He says, strive diligently. Diligence, sampadeti, is something he spoke of every day in all of his teachings. He always urged his monks, be diligent, be diligent, be diligent. This goes against the stream of our own consciousness, our own desires, definitely against society. And it takes constant effort. It takes constant diligence to develop these things. Be inspired. Be inspired. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be daunted by the weight of it, because even a little bit feels great. And then a lot feels really great. Ajahn Chah, late meditation master from Thailand, used to say to his monks, if you let go a little, you feel a little peace. If you let go more, you feel more peace. If you let go a lot, you feel a lot of peace. So any little movement that we make towards this practice, we get a return on it when we're doing it the right way. So it's that studying, it's that practice to realize what we're trying to do, build this environment in our hearts and our minds, and then to deepen into it. He ends by saying, and if, my friends, you let go completely, you have complete peace. To be completely untethered from our world. And that is that groundless, scary, dangerous place where we really feel, the ground shaking underneath us. I don't like this. I'm not. And that is a sign to say we need more samatha. We've had enough vipassana. We've had this insight into, wow, nothing's stable in my life. I like to think it is. And I mean, we suffer from this every day. We see on the news the wars and our economy is so unstable. It was always unstable. Our planet's unstable. Anything can happen to this planet. Another asteroid can come and pound us and destroy all life on this planet tomorrow, today, in the next 5 minutes. Nothing can be taken for granted, but you're still here having the same experiences. The issue is perception. Perception and feeling, they go hand in hand. You perceive of it to be solid. And so your whole life, you've had this experience of joys, of love, of all of these things. When, the joke's on you, you live in what, from our perspective, is a nightmare. There's nothing stable about this. This is all so not reliable. So we're practicing to have this deep well of solidity in us so that we can live in the truth of this world, seeing things clearly, where our feelings, our illogical, emotional reactions aren't what's guiding our perceptions, and in the end point, our actions in relation to this world, how we see it, how we react to it, how we're living, what we're doing with this gift called life. So, this is a good framework for the goals of meditation, the true deep goals of meditation. And you can start to see just from this why, mindfulness based stress reduction and all these, what I would say is kind of surface level um, effects or benefits of mindfulness. It becomes clear why those benefits exist when we see the deep profundity that they're actually aimed at. So, going on to the four foundations of mindfulness and how this mindfulness of breathing that we've discussed, where they're kind of encoded in what we've gotten through so far. So, the Buddha says, mindfulness of breathing, coming back to the beginning, we establish mindfulness in front of us. We tune in to the ebb and flow of our breath. We start settling into the present moment. We get in touch with the body. We're settling deeper and deeper now. We're calming the body, loosening everywhere. We're unattaching from our investment in things. We're noticing that first, or rather we're noticing its end effect, and we're just soothing that away so that it relating to our investment in things starts to lessen, so that we can get some perspective on it. Settling the body, tranquilizing the body, calming the body. This is mindfulness of the body. We're being mindful of the body in just doing that. This is satisfying an awareness of this. The next step in Anapanasati is a section on feeling. It's the section that I kind of skipped over in the first or second video. From body, we step into tranquilizing the body, experiencing rapture. A tranquil body, I've said this before, effects that we start to feel. Rapture is the end result. You feel rapture when you're really deep, but you feel good when you're not in complete perfect trance, on a retreat or whatever. It can be pretty rare. So getting attached to anything is, of course, going the opposite direction of what it takes to have these experiences. So being attached to them is not, don't do that. They come in time. It is immediately accessible, like Ajahn Chah said, in proportion to how much you let go. So if our goal is to have these experiences, we're not going to, because that's a reaching out. The goal is the perspective, and the gift that we get is the samatha, the calm, but is also something we can develop through a letting go. There's a juxtaposition there that we each just kind of have to make peace with in our practice. Either rate, we can influence this rapture. The Buddha is saying as much. It's a determination of will. We breathe in, experiencing rapture. We're offering it to ourselves, clearing the mind, settling in the body first so that this is possible, alighting the imagination and the memory banks inside here to provide us a hologram of that experience that we can tap into, feeling these things, feeling pleasure, feeling rapture. And then we've gone on to the mental formation, the sankhara, the perception and feeling, the perception of the body, the perception of the pleasure, the feeling of the pleasure, the awareness of the pleasure we can get out of the pleasure. There's the feeling, rapture, pleasure in the body, this calm awareness of it at the same time, the perception of it, perceiving it, this thing. this stage of the Anapanasati instructions, the Buddha says, as we're mindful of these things, we're being mindful of our feelings in doing that, and not just of feelings, but in this wonderful way, wholesome feelings. These are wholesome feelings. Um, so right effort is being included in this thread. In Anapanasati, the Buddha reframes it in a different way where he says, you know, we can be mindful of unwholesome feelings. And he goes through a whole slew of those. And of them, he says this, the way he speaks of them is he frames them in a way that is aligned to perception through the five aggregates, right view of the non-self nature of these things. Don't get too into that. He says, the way he speaks of them, unwholesome states, he says, be mindful of these unwholesome states in this way. A thought of anger has arisen in my mind. We're meditating, we're calming, or we're trying to calm, or we are calming, and then one of those blips happens, and it is, I can't believe my boss is such a uncaring jerk. Is this angst? So we have a tendency to say, "Oh, that's not good. I just screwed up my little energy container that I'm trying so hard to build." Yada yada yada. Why did I do that? Why can't I just lobotomize myself and change who I am? And it's that in so doing, we are reinforcing those thoughts as that's me. I had that feeling. So we're stabilizing it just by even trying to destabilize it by our average, general, instinctual way of noticing the blip, pointing to it as wrong, saying that needs to change. We're feeding life into it. When the blip comes up, I've had, boom, I've had, a nasty thought towards someone, or a feeling of desire, or a yearning, or an agitation, or an irritation, whatever it is. We notice the blip, and the way the Buddha frames it is he says, a bhikkhu notices a thought of ill will has arisen in me. There's so much inside just those simple words that you can just read them and say, yeah, okay, so, and not get the real benefit of the way he's saying it and what he is trying to say. And that is because he's not here in front of us. We don't have him to say it, to intuit from him what he's getting at or inquire further with him. The way he is saying this is, we notice this thought has arisen. This is a thought. It has arisen in my perception. It is conditioned. It has conditions in my memory, in all kinds of things that are also impermanent. So as we notice it as an object, not as a me. We don't take ownership over it. If we do, we're done. I'm going to go ahead and flip to the Satipatthana Sutta. He goes through this and he does it with the body. Now, body is a large part of the Satipatthana Sutta. There's many different ways to contemplate your body. You can think about it dying. You can think about it rotting. You can think about the four states of matter in your body: gaseous, air quality, solid, liquid, and plasma, heat. All of these are inside of our body, so you can notice that, and that the body works on the laws of the external world. Four states of matter has to do with matter. When we decompose this body and all of its constituent parts down to what it's made out of what that is made out of, and that is not us, so we are not this. And that's what we're really getting to in these. And I'm going to go ahead and just pause there and look at the body, because it's going to be a real hang up for us. So if we cut off our fingers, we're still alive. You can lose your limbs. You can lose all of your limbs and still be alive. So are you your body? In the movie What Dreams May Come, They talk about this when Robin Williams, the actor, and Cuba Gooding Jr. Our Robin Williams character has died, and he says, who are you? What are you? And he says, I'm my brain, I suppose. And he's like, you're not your brain. But we do that. We're like, well, I'm everything else. I'm everything inside my torso. We can cut out someone's heart and put someone else's heart inside of it. And when we do that, uh, there's in the medical in medical history, we see that the person will have they'll start to love spicy food, which the person who has passed on, whose heart it was, this person that received the transplant of their heart, it was that person that loved spicy food, or that person played tennis, and the memories of the neurons inside of the heart that has been put in you starts connecting with this, and your memories that are yours. No, these memories are not yours. This heart is not yours, but the one that's already in here isn't you. It's yours, but it's not you, because we take it out, we put someone else's in, and now we're having another human being's memories, reflex memories, but also desires, wants, which are, what's the word for that? Preferences. We have taken on someone else's preferences, or we can take on another human being's preferences because their heart is placed in our bodies and stitched back together. This is profound. Now, I want to get to brain, because that's where my mind goes in the justification of I am this body, I am the thing, blah, 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 blah. The brain changes more than everything else in the body, period. It changes faster, it changes constantly, it's 100% elastic. Your bones stay the same. Your heart stays the same. Your heart actually, it'll get little tears, rips, herniations. I mean, it's a muscle. It's doing this all the time. And it's optimized with blood vessels all over itself, and it heals immediately. But it's always like scarring and regrowing and changing, and our whole bodies are doing this. And we can see this in the processes. But this thing that we really want to say, that's me, it is pure elastic. Every experience you have changes this organ. It changes all of your neurons. It is rehabituating itself constantly. It's constantly optimizing. And in that crawl, it can completely transform into something very different from what we take ourselves to be from this moment to the very next moment and beyond. So, this is why there are so many contemplations in the body section of the Satipatthana Sutta. Is, you know, it can seem so simple, especially as Westerners. We want to go right to, there's these four foundations of mindfulness. It's the body, feelings, mind, and mind states, or mind objects, or mind dhammas. We can kind of break it down into three: body, mind, emotion. The physical, the emotional, the mental, right? That trinity of things is kind of the whole shebang that we're here with in this life, in this existence. So we like to go to mind because we want to be intellectual. We have an intellectual language. But in one of the previous videos, I talk about how that mind is reflected in this body. Through contemplation of this body is really, you start to see the strongest way to um, de-solidify, or start taking apart our perception of ourselves. The solidity of things just leads to a lot deeper insight into this whole thing. um, so that's body, feelings, and mind. The way the Buddha's framing how to on these is, thoughts work the same as feelings. So I have a good feeling, you know. We initially crave, desire, and get greedy around it. We covet that feeling. This is mine. It's my baby. I love this good feeling. This is why we want to take vacations and tax the environment, and everything. We crave experiences. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, We crave experiences that can be inborn. Anyways, the feeling arises, and we immediately have this reach to it. So the Buddha's saying, put it out here, stay as still as you can, practice this stillness, building this container so that when the feeling arises, you can perceive it as this feeling has arisen. Contemplate it with what the Buddha says is wisdom. See its impermanence. Don't lean into it right away. Ah, I'm finally having the great feeling. Yeah, and it's going to be gone too. So you waited for nothing. If you're trying to have experiences, they are transient. Everything is. We're building a well of stability where the transient nature of these things isn't affecting us. So proper mindfulness of feelings is, and then it's the stuff that we don't want, a feeling of pure hate or a feeling of arrogance, or a thought of arrogance, a feeling of discontent, a feeling of depression, we're always stepping out of. We're always, the illusion is that we're in it. The truth is that we're not. It works this way with trauma. It works with this way with all of our experience. The minute we perceive of it, we are, what's the word? Outside of it. The perceiver of isn't influenced or has the choice to be. This is mindfulness. This is true mindfulness. Is that we can be aware or conscious. It's sort of wrapped up in the term learning to really see what we're looking at. It's right in there. This is a key ingredient or aspect of sati, of mindfulness, is to really consciously cognize these things and notice these deeper aspects that language works against us at. It really is working against us. We really want to come to a wordless place in our meditation where we're perceiving and not, adding more language is a necessity, and it's also a barrier. So in the mind, we have these thoughts, we notice them first. Inside the noticing, an externalization, that's the word I was trying to think of, an externalization takes place. This has arisen in my mind. It's arisen based on conditions, external conditions. It's not you. The degree to which you invest energy into it, which is just by having an opinion of it, let it go. We're building a new structure in our mind, in our hearts, in our way of relating to the world by letting these things go. If this isn't how you want to be, then stop thinking about that right now. Build a habituation, a habit pattern of different energy right now, right here and right now, in how you let go of things, in how you have balance with things. This practice of balance, this practice of relinquishment. So relinquish the thoughts as they come, the mind objects as they arise. Relinquish that. It's already on its way out. It's not permanent. It's not you. It doesn't bring you any satisfaction. Same with feelings. Good feelings, feelings that cause craving, feelings that cause addiction. And as soon as we're invested on that level, our morality is in jeopardy because we will do questionable things all the way to ghastly things, all for the pursuit of pleasure. People are not evil because they want to be. People are evil because they think God is inside their pleasure, and we all want ecstasy and, all this stuff. And kind of uh, aligned to it. And we're not noticing the jeopardy that it puts us in. Calibrated is the word. We're all sort of calibrated to want that because a part of us knows that's my home. That pure joy and bliss, that is my home. Nibbana, the Pali term for nirvana or enlightenment, is absolute bliss and unconditioned. This is the way the Buddha describes it. That's about all we can say about it because it is far beyond language to even address. Even the self is beyond language to address. There's no way to frame in a physical world something that is immaterial like consciousness. It's not connected to the this, the brain. It's not connected to the brain. The brain changes, but there is the consistency of this constant awareness, the ability to access it, this presence. The Buddha even um, opposes a monk who is under the impression that, oh yeah, it's our consciousness, it's this eternal thing. It's like, no, your consciousness isn't. That changes too. Whose consciousness? What is consciousness? What you're conscious of? How conscious you are? How aware? How awake? How subconscious? Asleep? How connected? Thing. Even that isn't a good descriptor for what this self experience that we have is. This awareness that we have. Destabilizing these things culminates in a deep insight into our nature and the inherent freedom from these things that is written into the laws of our nature. This is how things truly work. So, in framing these things correctly, they stop having power over us. So, back to Anapanasati. We've gone through feeling when we are breathing in, breathing out, influencing the experience of rapture, of pleasure, segregating the mind from external things. A big part of the Buddha's teaching is restraining the senses. That's kind of what meditation is. It's why you close your eyes when you meditate. You can definitely meditate with open eyes. And I actually suggest it to get mindful of your environment, to get present first and then come within. Can be very beneficial. Sometimes when we close our eyes, the mind is already in control and it just stays in control for, an hour-long meditation. We didn't get anything done. It's because we didn't. The very first instruction, it's poignant and it's very important, is establish mindfulness in front of you. Establish mindfulness here in this moment, with this body and this breath arriving here. Then moving on from there. So experiencing this pleasure. The next step in this is tranquilizing the mental formation, and then he trains us breathing in and out, experiencing the mind. And this is, of course, fulfilling the foundation of mindfulness of mind, in which the stages are, again, I'll reiterate, experiencing the mind, breathing in, breathing out. So again, breath as a ground to sustain our mindfulness of the mind. And then we're influencing, gladdening the mind, uplifting it. When the mind is gladdened, when the mind starts to kind of chill and kind of feel good, it cannot concentrate, samadhi, concentration, without that feeling. It is not possible. There is an agitation, there is a feeling of lack, because this is our pursuit. This is what's leading us onward, is that, but clarifying it and its conditions, the conditions of gladness. Really getting in touch with that. There's the ability to have that in here without the outside. Gladdening the mind, concentrating the mind is the next stage. The mind becomes concentrated only when it is gladdened. From this concentrated mind now, we've built this very carefully, created this environment where finally this concentrated mind can sort of materialize. Now, it's very delicate as it's being built. It takes a lot. There's a lot that needs to be done to get the mind concentrated. Once it is, you're lucky to get it unconcentrated, is how it's talked about. It's spoken of as being an unassailable samadhi, a samadhi that is unassailable, a samadhi, a concentration that can take it all. Once this state is initiated, it is very strong and stable. It can be directed where we want it to be directed to. We can investigate things undauntedly. There's so much in the media now about, everyone's a genius, that we have a genius gene. Yeah, everything does. How do we access it? This is how. It takes a very structured environment to allow the mind to stop believing in these things. This is why we relate to the mind, the body, and the feelings in this way of this is what is happening now. This is the impermanent thing that is taking place in the time stream at this moment. It is not a continuation. Separating ourselves from, our claim of these things so that something new can grow, new can happen, a new habituation, a new mental pattern can be established. And living from that place, it's just, this is true flow state of a flow of clean cognition, pure cognition, clear understanding. This is the whole aim of these things. So when we've done all this and we've gladdened the mind truly, deeply, we've segregated it from everything that assails it and changed our relationship to external influences, the mind can really take its seat and get to that place that we yearn for so much, this place of clarity, this place of concentration. From there, next stage is mind dhammas, or mind objects, as the Buddha points to them. These are sort of laws. This is where we're seeing in the mind what is true truth, and that is impermanence, breathing in, breathing out, contemplating impermanence, contemplating the fading away of things, how they are impermanent and changing, and then eventually completely unmanifest. Contemplating relinquishment after this, our relationship, the cessation in us, and relinquishment in us. Contemplating cessation. Cessation is basically fading away. Is kind of a way to say it for now, I guess. Is when something extinguishes, is a simile in the Pali Canon. Trying to remember an exact simile for you. The Buddha uses a simile of fire. I'll just make it kind of short and simple. Talking about himself, he says, the difference with me, why I say I'm awake, is, I've extinguished this in myself, this tendency in me to look outside or to take these things as myself, to be, hoodwinked by reality as it blares by us so quickly without us having the time to actually notice, like, oh, wait, what's actually going on? This isn't me. I don't have to, feeling taking place. He says these things are extinguished in me. That is cessation. It's when things, so we contemplate cessation. We build a neural network in our mind. We build a habituation of thought. So we're building this hologram so that we have that, so that can actually materialize in our lives of, what if I abandon these things? You're not going to be able to abandon them if you're not first in a concentrated mind, feeling good already, feeling completely satisfied. When you develop this to a point where you can sit in that place, you really do want to lean into cessation. You want to lean into relinquishment. I don't want any of this stuff, because you see it clearly. If I'm invested in anything really in this world, it's gonna bring me pain. This is not a heartless way or a opting out sort of way of relating to our lives. It's not about that. You still love, you still care. Compassion, kindness, these things are staples of Buddhism. It's what awakens in the heart when we see things clearly. It's not about, just because you're not addicted to the world doesn't mean that now you hate the world. It means that now you actually know how to love the world and your loved ones and everyone. When you're attached to the fact that your loved ones are going to die, well, it's all about you, isn't it? You're sad that they're the ones that died. Why can't you show up for them? Because you're attached to your connection to that truth. This is impermanence. If your heart can take it, then you can really be there with someone on their deathbed. And it's not about you or your ego structure at all. This is what we're learning to do. This is what we're training our mind and our hearts to do, is to fully be here with things as they are. Not here as a robot, that's not humanly possible. To be here as a fully blossomed human being with this heart fully activated so that we can love and be there for each other as our world dies. This is what is so needed now, is for us to stand up and grab our human inheritance by the reins, to have the strength to be with in samadhi, in concentration, in grace, in purity, in love, and so much more. This is the essence of these teachings. So, mindfulness, 4 foundations of mindfulness, anapanasati, really starting to build a structure of what the Buddha is really aiming us at here, what he's really talking about what enlightenment is, what we're missing, what it is we're trying to do with meditation, what, what this practice is for, what it achieves. I'm going to stop this video now. At this point in the sutta, the Buddha is moving on to, now that we have delineated how mindfulness of breathing is the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, what we're doing with those 4 foundations of mindfulness, the body, how we're relating to it, our feelings, how we're relating to those, our mind, how we're relating to it, and then the truth of things, once we've seen through those 3, brings us to the threshold of these aspects of reality and how we're relating to that. 4 foundations, mindfulness of breathing. We are moving on to, later in this same sutta, the Buddha says, and I'll just go ahead and read this for you so you know what is coming next. And how bhikkhus do the 4 foundations of mindfulness, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment. That is what we'll be getting into in the next video, or several probably, because the 7 factors of enlightenment, there are these 7 aspects of what is taking place in our psyche, in our whole experience when we have, when we become enlightened, sure, at the moment of enlightenment, but also at the moment of insight, or just the general milieu or energy in the mind, this environment that we're building, the aspects and conditions of it, what has arisen when we see things clearly. These are components that you want to notice, recognize, that are alive and awake. You want to feed energy to these 7 factors so that this arises more easily. And if they're not present, then oh, this is what's out of balance. So it's very much a really great system, and there is a balance in them. They're headed by mindfulness. And then there's 6 other factors, each kind of balance each other. And they're heavy, and they have very deep implications for this practice, which is why we're doing a long video series about them. And we will talk about them in the next video. Be well, and I will see you soon.